Caitlin, Trump met with another world leader, Syria's interim president. This is a day after Trump announced the U.S. is going to lift sanctions on Syria. It obviously just underwent a massive political upheaval with Assad deposed 6 months ago. The new president, Ahmed al-Sharaa, I'm sure I'm botching the pronunciation there, he's a former jihadist who until recently had a $10 million U.S. bounty on his head.
Yeah, used to fight for al-Qaeda as well, Jake, when you look at his background. And the president referenced that when we were speaking with him. And this was before he left to come here to Doha. This was earlier when we were still in Saudi Arabia. The president sat down with him behind closed doors. Press was not part of that room, but the Saudi crown prince was there. The Turkish president was on the phone for this conversation, as it was essentially a meet and greet between the two of them. Though they did have a conversation about several critical issues between the two of them. And press was not in there, but when we later saw President Trump, we asked him what were his takeaways initially after he became the first U.S. president to sit down with a Syrian leader in 25 years. And this is what he told me.
How did you find the Syrian president?
Great. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass. Very strong pass fighter.
Does that worry you?
But he's got a real shot at pulling it together.
Obviously, strong pass. Jake is putting it lightly there when you look at Ahmed al-Sharaa's background here. But what the White House is how they're viewing this is they're not trying to kind of gloss over that, but they're saying they do believe this is a chance to kind of provide this economic lifeline to Syria by lifting these sanctions. Something that I should note has actually earned the president bipartisan praise. People like Senator Chris Murphy, who I spoke to last night, said that they believe this is a step in the right direction. But you heard the president there essentially saying that they are going to give Syria time to get the country on the right track. One thing he made clear to us, Jake, is that he does want to see Syria normalize relations with Israel, as he's been trying to build on the Abraham Accords. But he essentially made clear to us that that is further down the road, and that essentially this is going to be the starting point with these two leaders. And it was notable that obviously Erdogan and the Crown Prince were all part of this. It was the Crown Prince who was urging President Trump behind the scenes before this trip to lift those sanctions on Syria.
Caitlin Collins in Qatar, thanks so much. Look out for Caitlin in just a few hours on her show, The Source. It's an excellent show. It airs weeknights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only here on CNN. Thanks, Caitlin. Safe travel. CNN's Becky Anderson is also in Qatar. And Becky, you sat down with the Prime Minister of Qatar today. What did he have to say about this very controversial offer of a $400 million jet being offered to President Trump by Qatar?
Well, it was a wide-ranging interview, I have to say. We talked about Syria. We talked about the ongoing Gaza talks here. There is an Israeli delegation here, along with Steve Witkoff and Adam Berler, the chief U.S. hostage negotiator, in indirect talks once again with Hamas. And there is some hope for progress, although the Prime Minister did say to me that when as he understands it, Israel has sent the delegation over only to talk about hostages and not a ceasefire. That doesn't put a great sheen and doesn't, bode for great optimism for these talks going forward. After all, Qatar's been involved in mediating these talks, along with Egypt and the US, of course, for 19 months. They've had many breakthroughs, November of 2023 and at the beginning of this year. But this is a long, drawn-out process, not least for those hostages and the people of Gaza. And so, I don't think we should expect any breakthroughs on that anytime soon. But we talked about this important mediation role that Qatar has, which makes them an indispensable ally for the United States in this region and around the world. But of course, I asked him about what is this ongoing controversy, this criticism of Qatar, over the offer of this plane. And I asked him to explain how it all went down. This is what he told me.
This is a very simple government-to-government dealing when Ministry of Defense and Department of Defense are still exchanging the possibility of transferring one of our 747s-8 to be used as Air Force One. And it's still under the legal review, so there is nothing really, I don't know what was like, why it became like so big as a news that this is something that, considered in a very strange way. We have done a lot together with the U.S.
And Jake, I asked him whether he was concerned, what his response was to this criticism, these cries that Qatar is trying to buy influence. He said, why would we do that? We have a lot of influence with the United States. We have a good relationship, he said, and that is borne out as partners when, for example, Qatar lent so much support to repatriate Americans and others from Afghanistan, for example. And so, to him, this seems very odd. He talks about this being a mutual relationship, a government-to-government relationship, and that is squarely where he sees the offer of this plane. Jake?
Today, we are seeing signs of major changes in U.S. foreign policy as President Donald Trump continues his trip across the Middle East. President Trump was greeted today by camels and red Teslas as he arrived in Qatar, where he announced a $200 billion deal for Qatar to purchase 160 jets from U.S. airplane manufacturer Boeing. This is separate from the plane he says he will accept from Qatar to be used as Air Force One, a gift that has, of course, raised legal and ethical and national security questions. But before leaving Saudi Arabia for Qatar today, President Trump held an informal meeting over tea with Syria's new interim president, Ahmad al-Sharaa. It's a moment that would have really been unthinkable until recently, because Sharaa is a former jihadist who had a $10 million U.S. bounty on his head before he led the overthrow of the brutal Assad regime 6 months ago. This meeting today came one day after Trump said he would remove decades-old sanctions on Syria, a major change in U.S. foreign policy. Trump's moves on Syria are even earning praise from former Obama Defense Secretary and CIA Director Leon Panetta, despite Sharaa's past.
This individual was able to lead that rebellion, was able to depose Assad, and as far as I can see, is working to try to stabilize a difficult challenge with regards to Syria. The United States has an interest in stability.
CNN's Jeff Zeleny is in Doha, Qatar, for us. And Jeff, put in perspective how Trump is really shaking up, if not completely upending, Middle East policy on this trip. But first, CNN's Becky Anderson is getting some exclusive comments from the Qatari Prime Minister about their offer of the plane Trump wants to turn into the new Air Force One.
Jake, we are hearing for the first time from the Qatari government responding to what really has developed into days and days of controversy over the notion of the Qatari royal family gifting the U.S. president a lavish aircraft to be turned into Air Force One. So our managing editor, Becky Anderson, sat down just a few moments ago with the Qatari Prime Minister, who said it's not trying to buy the United States anything. He said it's an act of love.
It is a government-to-government transaction. It has nothing to do with personnel, whether it's on the U.S. side or on the Qatari side. Why would we buy an influence in the United States? If you look just, in the last 10 years of the U.S.-Qatar relationship, Qatar has been always there for the U.S.
If it's not deemed legal, the offer would be withdrawn, I assume.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we will not do anything illegal. I mean, if there was something illegal, there were many ways to hide these kind of transactions and will not be visible for the public.
So he said he would not do anything illegal. The Qatari government would not. But, Jake, the open question here is it wouldn't necessarily be illegal here in Doha, but it could be unethical and perhaps illegal, as well as unsafe and other pieces of criticism we've heard in the United States. So it's very much an open question where this is going from here. We do know that the president flew to Doha today on the old Air Force One. It is something he has long wanted to change, so we shall see where this goes. But the Qatari leader is not surprisingly saying they're not trying to buy anything from the United States, just simply trying to give away a $450 million plane. Jake.